Hello, and welcome to The Porch with Alicia Barlow. Hi, I'm Alicia Barlow, author of The Porch, a place for enjoyment, conversation with people, reflection, and encouragement. Hello, everybody. This is Alicia, author of The Porch, and your host of The Porch. I am here today with Mr. Hiawatha Boudon. Bowden.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I think most of the people know me as Hiawatha Bolden.
Hiawatha Bowden. And the name itself, Hiawatha, is it's just different. It's a different name. Before we get started, I wanted to say that, when I first started doing this podcast, the first time, I said that, the porch is for people to just come and talk, for us to have conversations. You don't have to be famous or, really have a big platform to come and sit on the porch and have a conversation with somebody. I feel that everybody has a story. Everybody has something to say. And that's how we get to know each other. It's just listening to what people have to say. And you have stories. You are a community person, just meeting you out in the community and here at Possibilities, I have found that you are a person that likes to be out in the community. You like to do things. You like to connect with people. And that's why I've asked you to come and just join me on the porch and just kind of let's find out who you are and let me find out who you are and share some of the information that you have, things that you do, things that you've done in your past. You are service connected. You are a retired Air Force serviceman, and I thank you for your service. And I think that just seeing you and talking with you, you have continued that service throughout your life. I am guessing that you started doing service even probably before you joined the Air Force.
Well, I think, everyone does something that affects each other. And the word you mentioned, the porch, first of all, we had a porch. Yes. We hung on that porch. We sat on that porch. We connected on that porch. Yes. In that community. And you're right. I think when you're growing up, regardless of where you're at, you're going to affect one another. If you touch one another, if you talk to one another. And by doing so, you don't realize what that's going to do for you 20 years from then, 30 years from then. But you're going to remember a lot of these things and it's going to come back, or you're going to say, these are the things that really make the most difference in your lives. I do. I've always liked working with the community, but more so, I like living within that community. Yeah. Having friends, having associates, having family, and I think it depends on where you're from.
So where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up in inner city Chicago. Okay. And I think the thing that's really neat is that most people don't realize that you have no control over your growth until you're out there in the world, if you will, or you're out there working. But the things that happen to you are going to be so important to what you do when you get older. There's so many books that I like reading. There's one author that I really like, and his name is Malcolm Gladwell. Okay. You might have heard of him, but there's a book called Outliers. Okay. And basically what it talks about is the way you're raised is dependent on where you're at, when. And, so the things that surround you. I grew up I was born in 1954. So I'll be 71 years old this year. But the neat thing is growing up in Chicago, and when I do workshops now, and I'll tell a person, well, I'm from Chicago. Can you tell me what I was doing when I was 15 years old? And a lot of the people, the first thing they will say was, you're running around, you're partying, you're gangbanging. Unless they know time. In the 50s, Chicago was nothing like it is today. Okay. We were playing hide and go seek. I lived on one block. Everyone owned their own homes. There were big trees that went almost across our entire street. We would play hide and go seek, climbing in the trees. We'd play softball. We'd play strike 'em out against the building down the street.
Strike 'em out against the building.
Strike 'em out. It's just a great game, with a rubber ball and a bat, But the thing they'd say, well, wow, I didn't realize that you would. I said, what do you mean by you? You see, and what's happening, education, things like that, the way you're growing. I had no control over the schools I went to. My dad was in the Navy during the war. He became a decorator. He had his own job. My mom was a nurse's aide, but she was also real active in our school. So she was a big advocate. I started school in 59. What happened in July of 54? Brown versus Board of Education. So what that meant was a lot of the schools that we were going to at that time, all of a sudden started getting all of these resources, all of these great things, much better education, equal education. Now, but as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I had nothing to do with that, but I benefited from it. Exactly. You see, my parents sent me to Catholic schools after 8th grade, but I went to all boys Catholic college prep schools. Again, I didn't have anything to do with it, but I was capable, I had the resources, and I benefited from it. You see, so what I'm saying is there's things that happen to you that you will be able to use and
direct you later on in life.
It will help you later on if you use it. You see, school to me was great, but college, post-secondary education, it was technically the same thing at that time. Mm-hmm. So I joined the military, but I didn't just join the military. You know, some people think of the military and they think of throwing bullets. They think of war. They think of fighting, etc. I was in dentistry.
I see that. I see that. So did you want to become a dentist?
No, but see, that's the neat thing about the military. And again, connecting dots. 12 years after I was in, I went into recruiting, as you see. Yes. But the neat thing is that's when that, oh, no wonder came forward. In the Air Force, in the military, they don't just snatch you up. They have needs, but they also have times when they need you too. Yes. And you have to have certain qualifications to meet those resources and those needs. I mentioned that I went to college prep high schools, high science, high math, music, culture, history, social studies, etc. When they take you in, they check you, they find out what your qualifications are, your background. I had a high proclivity for science and math. They had a high need for medical professionals. They had a shortage. All I had to do was be available and be qualified and go. And as long as I kept going to schools, I had to stay in and I had to go where they wanted me to go. Okay. Fortunately for me, they were places like Panama City Beach, Florida, Provincetown, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Montauk Point, Long Island, Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, Cape Hatteras, Washington,
places that you probably didn't mind
going. And you're learning. There's so many people that never leave their neighborhoods.
You're right.
And I've seen, by the time I was 22 years old, I had seen the entire Eastern Seaboard, but not just seen it, lived there, live with the people there, seen things. When I moved to DC, got connected with those individuals. And the neatest thing is what you do when you're growing up, you continue to do as you go. Mm-hmm. At least it seems that way to me. Yes.
Sometimes.
Unless there's certain things.
Sometimes there's a need to change.
Yeah. And I was going to say, depending on the resources, depending on where you're at, the environments, the situations. I got to Washington, D.C., and I was a gentleman, my 7th grade teacher, that he was our baseball coach, he was our choir director. This guy really loved the community and the kids. And it seems like I just imprinted on this guy.
Okay. So I was going to say, you have, talking with you and kind of reading some of the things that you've done, you have a lot of connection with working with children. Mm-hmm. So I know that you've worked a lot of service in the military, in the Air Force, but when did you start getting connected with working with children and the youth?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I started that even before I joined the Air Force, but it really just carried on. Okay. I was in choir. I was in drama in high school. The gentleman I mentioned, He was our choir director, and we actually built and staged the play, produced it, and put it on in our community. So as I got in the military, I just continued doing these things.
Okay.
I moved to Washington, D.C., and I got a part-time job with the Maryland National Parks. Now, we were campers. We'd camp in West Virginia and Maryland and all over the place. I mean, we literally would be able to drink the water in the Potomac River because we were at the origin of the river. You think about the river in D.C. and oh no, you touch it and it's gone. But up where we were at the Savage and the Potomac at the origin.
Okay.
So we do all of this camping. Well, this job I had with Maryland Parks, they gave me a step van, a box of albums, vinyl records, a little record player, and skates. And I would go to the local schools in Northeast DC 2 days a week and let the children roller skate. Some days I'd have 10 kids, some days I'd have 2 kids, some days I'd have 40 kids.
Now, when was this again?
This was in Washington, D.C.
I know, but was this before?
This was while I was in the Air
While
Force.
you were in the
I
Air
was
Force.
in the Air
Okay.
Force, so this was
Wow.
a job after work.
Okay.
I would do this a couple of days a week, but it was working with the kids in the community.
Okay.
Well, we were campers, and there were about 7 of us that just went camping all the time. I decided to ask some of these kids to go camping with us.
Okay.
We took 6 of these students, and they were 7th graders, 6th graders, and 2 of their parents actually volunteered to go too.
Yes.
We took them out to the middle of nowhere. Now, these kids have never left inner city DC in their lives. 3-hour drive up to the middle of nowhere. We get there dark, we set them down, we make the fire, we put the tents up, and we tell them, if you leave the campsite without telling anyone and you get lost, we will never find you. I'm sure today, and this was in 1978,
Okay.
I'm sure if I went there today and could find these students, which would be adults now,
Yes.
they would remember that.
I'm sure.
I'm sure they would,
Yes.
But that hooked me right then.
Wow.
And I continued to do that. Well, I did training while I was in the dental corps. I would do our volunteer services. I would do our first aid services, our ancillary care for some of the youngsters that would come in that's pursuing their backgrounds and their professions and their vocations too. So I've always liked doing that. But what really hooked me was when I went in the recruiting service. Remember what I said about needs, timing? You don't just join the Air Force. You got to be qualified, but you also have to be available and you have to meet our needs.
Yes.
So these kids would come in, and I recruited in a town called Hayward, California, Fremont, California, Pleasanton, California. Some people may know this area as Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just the richest of rich kids. My apartment out there, where my wife and I live, was smaller than some of these kids' foyers in their homes. But these kids, that wasn't theirs. It was their parents. And they would come in, and some of these kids were really sharp. So it was real easy to sell them. But that's what I had to do. I had to make sure I knew what we needed and what they wanted and needed and could do. They liked roller skating. They liked going to the beach. They liked playing sports. We put a team together for softball, not for money, to play because they like playing.
Yeah.
We would do car washes and get money to go to the beach. We would do a skating party. And my boss, he would tell me, Hiawatha, if you're going to do this stuff, there's certain requirements. That meant I only had so much money I could spend. I had to have certain people. They had to have what we call tentative
So your budget and your
qualifications.
resources.
You see, so I made sure all of those things matched, but I also made sure they knew that too. So it was so easy to do this job.
So how do you find that you've carried over the things that you've done in your past, even up to now, to today?
We're human. We're all connected. These are things we all want. We may not know that, but we do. We talk about things like suicide. We talk about things like people being depressed, etc. But the moment they meet someone,
That
they
they can
talk to
connect
someone they
with.
can connect with, everything lights up. That's our purpose,
Is
to bring
connection.
people together. Well, my jobs, all of them, dentistry, recruiting, whatever, had all those common denominators. I had to do all of these things. You know, there's people that look at it and they say, well, this is anecdotal. I say, oh, no, 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 no. This has been happening since the beginning of time. You see, it's just that we've changed the names, the definitions, etc. We've either exploited some of it, we've set some aside, we've changed how we do it, but we're still doing the same things, and we still see the same impacts. When something
The
isn't
needs are
going,
still there.
and they're going to always be there, because our DNA is to be
With others.
to be connected. And I think we're the only ones that have the conscious, so we make choices. If you look at the other species, if you will, they don't. They still connect too. You see, so I mean, and I just think I try to stay focused on that in everything that I do. And even though I know situations change, so a lot of the things that I do and where I've gone, it's helped me continue this, or actually increase that opportunity to do it. I retired in '94 from the military, and my wife is also retired military.
Yes, and I see that even your children.
Yeah, my son. He
Your son
went
is
in for 4
military.
years. And my daughter, her husband is in the Marines.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we just got back from Japan, Okinawa. She just had my 4th grandchild. So we went over 3 days after she was born and stayed the whole month of March. And it was so awesome, you know, just the culture, the people, all of the things to do, the baby, of course, you see. But, you know, I think, again, it's just a connection. You know, you're seeing people there, even there. I would try to connect with people there because, again, they need that same thing.
It's everywhere.
We don't, you know, we go around, we don't look at each other. I try to see the whites of people's eyes. I always try to look right at them and say something if it arises, if the opportunity arises. You know, we wear T-shirts, we wear these sayings, we do all of these things. We're asking for that connection.
Yeah.
We may not think we are, but we are, you know, and then do it, then connect. And what you
It's
find
amazing
is,
when you make that connection, how you just draw yourself to that person is maybe drawn to you. And not necessarily physically, but then there's just something. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, you don't know how it's going to, the outcome is going to be when they leave or when they walk off or when they go here. But you'd be surprised. I'm certain that most of the time that is a positive experience for both people when they walk away. There's things you learn. I do lots of workshops on behavioral health and community function and dysfunction. But what I talk about, one of the first questions I usually ask the audience, and I tell them, I usually don't like asking rhetorical questions. I want them to work with me. I want them to be part of the presentation. I vary from what I'm doing. I may have a PowerPoint, but believe me, it's just there. Say, I'm going to go off schedule real quickly because of who's in the audience. And that's why we're really there. And I expect them not to, if you hear this here, you leave it here. If you hear something from me, you spread it to the end of the earth.
That's the whole purpose.
Because I'm not giving you anything that you can't give away.
So do you still do workshops with children, with youth?
I do
not
youth,
necessarily
I do
children,
adults,
but youth, adults.
I said youth and big youth. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
You know, if the opportunity arises, I constantly let people know I'm available. And the neatest thing with me being retired, my wife being retired, we're okay.
Yes.
It's not about money. It's from the time I got out of the military, I've really never worried about making millions of dollars or anything. I enjoy connecting. I enjoy helping others connect with others. So I still do this. So I will tell people, don't worry about money. If I'm going to go to South Carolina, and I've done workshops on the East Coast, West Coast, all over the place, and I will tell people, you get me there, you put me up, it's paid.
Yes.
I don't need anything else. I've gone to Tallahena, I've gone down to Durant. I go all over the state, and I tell them the same thing. So to me, they're just road trips.
Yeah.
I take Carol with me every once in a while when she can go. Now, when I was in recruiting service, she did everything with me, even though she was working too.
Mm.
When we lived in England, I worked for the British Youth Services and the British school systems, and I did the same things over there. The only time I think I went on base was if I would do escorts for tours and things like that. Most of the time I was in my community learning about different things over there. So it's like I will continue to do this as long as I'm able to do it and people want me to come.
So I saw that you were like you said, the National PTA.
Right.
Services. What exactly? I know what PTA is, but what is a national PTA?
Well, the national PTA is the main structure.
Okay.
And if you looked at the organization as a whole, the national PTA was founded for the schools and the families and the communities.
Okay. All right.
God, what was it? 1879 or something like that. I mean, it's pretty old.
Okay.
But, there's people that don't realize that every school is not a separate school.
Mm-hmm.
They're all connected too. So when you pay your dues, and this is a thing that people didn't realize, I'm pretty sure, when you pay your dues, they had 5 objects of the PTA. They were primarily to connect your school with your community, with your parents, so that those teachers, those schools, those organizations, those school boards would know the profiles, the cultures of those kids that's coming to the schools. They would know the families, and the families would have input. And that's how the PTA worked. So your school, they would have conventions. So you say state level, and then national level, meaning say Washington, D.C. or Chicago is where the headquarters for the PTA was actually at. They would actually go and they would have conventions and conferences, and they would bring people from all over the country.
Well, I wonder, do they still have national PTA conventions? Because I've never heard of a national PTA convention.
And they're amazing. When you go to D.C. and you're right there, you go right to the Congress, you go right to your lawmakers, you go to your legislators. They actually do training to teach parents, teachers, students, because when you hear PTSA,
Yes.
the students in high schools and junior high schools, they're teaching them advocacy. So they're teaching them how to do these things and to communicate with their elected officials, their school board members, their mayors, where the money is coming from. Being here with a lot of military, they get extra funding for military schools. Well, not the military schools, but schools that have military members. So they want to make that happen. But something that I think people didn't realize when they say, well, you got to pay your dues and then all of a sudden you're not doing anything. Every person that pays for dues, every 25 members you have in your school, you get one voting delegate for the state or for the national when they have conferences, when they have profiles, when they have decisions to make. Your school has input. When I worked for Eagle Ridge, we would work with some of the inner city elementary schools, raise funds to buy them memberships at those schools.
Wow. Now, Eagle Ridge, for those that don't know, that was for
behavioral
health, yes.
Substance abuse prevention.
For adolescents.
Yeah, well, for
was it for adults?
We had adult profiles, but we also work with students.
Adolescents,
and
yes. Because I know it for adolescents. Okay.
Well, the foster care services, they had drug court services. Yes. We had, family health care. We had, as you said, mental health. But we also did student leadership.
Okay.
So, but that's how we actually worked over with the schools and the PTAs, et cetera. But by doing that, we allowed people to be able to go to these conferences, to these workshops and then vote. So as soon as they found out, you mean I do have a voice? Yes, you have a voice, but you need to know that. But see, and that's what I meant when I said connecting. What does that sound like? Gee, that sounds like just voting for my mayor or for my state representative or for my senate. Well,
It is.
It is. It's the same thing. But they're focused on one thing. They're focused on your school.
That's it. That's it. And that right now is a big focus.
And that's a big
That is
thing.
a big focus right now. Wow. So if people just know that and can understand that and just kind of get more involved, because there's a lot of things going on in school systems right now.
Oh, yeah. And they still ask for them. But, I think what I found when I started really getting involved in it, because I had gone to England and worked with the PTA in England and then came back. And by the time I came back, I was a lot more involved. But what I was finding is a lot of the schools, like you said, they would use their PTAs to do the bulletin boards in the schools and to make cakes and things like that. And a lot of people didn't want, they said, you are aggressive. I said, no, I'm not aggressive. I had a school in Texas. We had a young a person running the street, ball going the street, kid running the street, get hit. They didn't have fences around this school. We also had a student that went to that school that was a paraplegic. So they would have to set this little makeshift thing up to get that person on stage for activities, assemblies, etc. I was the PTA president at this school. I went to our superintendent's office, just walked in, and I just asked him, I said, I told him who I was, Hiawatha Bolden from ... PTA school in your district. And I just said, have you ever heard of the words ADA?
There you go.
And as soon as I said it, within 3 weeks, fence all the way around the school.
Sometimes it just has to be said.
They know you have to do it, but when they know you know it, then they act.
Yes.
You see, so, and they said, well, you can't be a vigilante. And I had people saying, I said, we're not being a vigilante. This is your school. You pay for it.
Yes.
You have decisions that you can make. You need
For
to
the
be
needs
at
of
the
the student.
table for the needs of the students, your students. Because to me, all of them were my students. You see, and even here, when I was the district president, I had all of the 30 schools in this district. And when I would have people on my board, when I mentioned the school and they didn't know that that was one of our schools, that was concerning to me. Because again, that school impacts that school. You see, so when they say this district is not doing this, I'm saying, well, they may only be talking about one school.
Yeah.
But you don't know that they're only talking about one school. Wow. I do. Okay. You see, so you have to make everyone see that they
increase the awareness of what's actually going on,
and
if
we can
who all is involved and what's all involved.
Yeah.
And so you've gone from school, and now you still do volunteering for military people that are veterans. I mean, you're from the youth to the veterans.
What's the difference? And I don't mean it in that way. You know what I'm saying?
We're all connected.
We're
all human.
We're all there,
and we're all on this lifespan.
There it is, and it's just where you're at.
It's
at
just
a
where you
time.
are.
That's
and
right.
So you're. I mean, so you just kind of move down the line.
Yeah.
You go where you're needed.
You go where
you're
the
needed.
situation brings you. Yeah.
So I was talking with you yesterday. You were saying that you were working with some veterans over in Midwest City, and y'all working on making a memorial.
Well, we have a memorial.
Or you're working on building up the memorial.
We upgrade it. We keep it up. We use it. We considered it when we first built it. We wanted it to be what we call a living memorial, meaning people use it.
So where is the memorial?
It's located in Midwest City at the Joe Barnes Regional Park. So it's the flagship park in Midwest City. Okay. If you wanted to look at it by streets, and you know it, it's at Northeast, Douglas, and Reno. So we have a swimming pool and a little water section there. Right to the south of the pool is the memorial.
Okay.
Now, it's really neat, that area, too. When we first started working on this, it was, I guess, 2010 or so. Well, I had been working with the park boards for years as far as going to meetings, trying to advocate for certain things for our kids. And again, here's that connection. We would put up ordinances to keep students from skateboarding up and down the sidewalks. I'm saying, why do an ordinance? Because the moment you do that, you give that child a record, if you will. You give them a mark.
Okay.
I say, if you don't want them skating here, you give them a place to skate. And we've worked at it, and finally we got a skate park so that the kids can go to the skate park. Basketball. We had kids playing in the parking lot behind the pool, the tennis courts in the park. They didn't have a light, and it was one basket on a pole. And at night, these kids would turn their headlights on so that they would play. There was a ravine that ran down, and the ball rolled down the hill. They'd have to run down and get it. We fought and fought and fought to try to get a basketball court. They had tennis courts. They had lights on them, but no one was using them. Messages. We fought it and fought it and fought it. Now, what happened, and it seemed like this timing is always great. A gentleman, not even military, noticed that we didn't have a U.S. flag in the park. But he happened to talk to several of us in the community who were all military. I noticed right away, we didn't even have a memorial in Midwest City to honor our vets. I said, so why stop at just the U.S. flag? So we brought together an ad hoc committee. We coordinated with certain agencies, contractors, designers, architects. I mean, we drove them out to the base. We looked at designs, etc. And we didn't want to spend lots of money, but we wanted it to be citizen ownership. And by the time we got everything together and raised, we had pro bono contractors, subcontractors, agencies like DeLisi for cement. They were doing work on the pool. They gave us the brick that goes behind it. The 3 flags that we fly there, I've got a pledge from an organization that will give us new flags anytime they're tattered. And they've been doing this for 12 years now. But the neatest thing is that we use it, and on the birthdays of all of our services, we honor them by posting their colors on a certain day. We bring in ROTC units. We may bring in honor guards. We bring in people like the Buffalo Soldiers. We bring in individuals. We have memorial services. We just had a country western, if you will, concert there. People brought their chairs out and they sat there in the park. We've had memorial sunrise services.
And so that's what you mean by it's a living memorial.
Right.
So
as
there's
opposed to just,
there's things that happen there.
yeah, people have access to it and they can use it when they want. If they need us to help them, all they got to do is call us. And we will come out and we'll make sure it's done. The city is amazing at, if we need it cleaned up, if we need something manicured, if we need something done, I can call it. I called them yesterday because we just put a new flagpole in. Text the guy. Before I even left the memorial, he was there. And he said, we'll take care of it. Connecting dots. They already know that the people, and we say it, thank you for your service. We appreciate this. I say, show us that you appreciate it. Do something like that. I had a gentleman that I was stationed with in 1974 in Massachusetts, and I was over at Tinker Pharmacy just day before yesterday. And he walked up to me and said, are you Hiawatha Bolden? I said, yeah. And he told me who he was, and it was amazing. I said, we were stationed together almost 40 years ago. And he has a memorial that they just built in Blanchard. But he heard about ours, and he heard about some of the stuff we do. He said, I'd like you to come down and talk to us because we spent all this money, we built this thing, but it's just there. I said, that's the whole point. A lot of people build these things and say, yeah, we did this, and then they let it sit there. This was not built to sit there. This was built so that people can come together, they can reflect, they can fellowship, they can talk to each other. And by talking to each other, you know what we're actually trying to do? We're lessening the opportunities for suicide, depression, all of those things, because that's what we did. We spoke with each other.
Yes.
We communicated with each other. We worked with each other. We shared with each other. And we just wanted to do that now.
So if somebody wanted to have something at this memorial site, I mean, do they have to reserve it, or is it it's just open?
It's there.
It's just
theirs.
there
It's the park.
It's the park. So
Now, the courtesy of telling us is so that if we have to help them with anything.
Okay. So when you say help them with something, what would
Well,
somebody
let's
need help
say,
with?
and we will do this, if they're going to come out there and let's say there's bushes or weeds and stuff like that, we will go out and we'll clean them up.
Okay.
If the grass needs to be manicured or cut, we can contact the city and we'll tell them
Okay.
someone's doing this service on this day,
Okay.
if you can, and they will work with us to do that. If they need the water, we'll do that. If they need the electrical, we'll open that.
Okay.
If they have something where the flags need to be manipulated, we will come out, have the key.
So how
do
would they
that.
get in contact with you?
We've got a Facebook page.
Okay. What is that
And
page?
it's called Midwest City Veterans Memorial. We made
Okay.
it so simple.
Okay.
And they just go on there and they just say, hey, we want to do this. And we get back to them and we find out. I had a young lady just the other day, her dad passed away. And it was really neat because when we do these services, they do different things for their services, the Navy, Army, and Air Force, etc. Well, the Navy, they have a ritual where they bring a birthday cake.
Wow.
And they have the junior Navy person and the senior person on site
Okay.
cut the cake. Well, her dad was one of the seniors that actually cut the cake at one of our ceremonies one year.
Okay.
All right, well, he passed away and it was his birthday. And she wanted to put something on his stone. We do memorial stones
Okay.
that they can buy. And we said, well, if you put it on there, someone may take it, someone may damage it. We know that other people would want to do this too. So it would be an issue. But we offered to her to pull it up, let her hold it, take pictures, do a memorial if she will. She asked, could she put it underneath? We pulled her stone.
Okay.
She came out, put a little Navy flag, put flowers, put the stone or the symbol under her stone, and we reburied it. And we left it there. But see, that's what I'm saying. When people contact us and they ask to do certain things, the gentleman that asked to do the concert,
Yes.
it wasn't a military concert. He just wanted to use the memorial because of the backdrop.
And it's a community
And it's a
setting.
community setting. And the way we built it so that you run right past it on the jogging track.
Okay.
And you really can't see it until you're at it. And we did that on purpose too.
Okay.
So it's got a round figure that actually encloses the memorial.
Okay.
So you can see the flags from a distance,
Okay.
but until you come up on it, you won't see it. And then all of a sudden, it's there.
Wow.
And everything we did was purposely. There's a
So why is it so that it's not very seen?
we want people to, oh, wow, this is neat.
Okay.
Or we want them to, when they're coming by, stop,
Okay.
reflect. That's
Okay.
the whole point. The back of it, there's a wall that you can sit on, and we put that wall there for a reason. To the west is where we do our fireworks on the 4th of July. There's 4 big trees that sits there, and they're spaced out so you can see all of the fireworks between the trees. And there's a hill that rolls down it. And the kids can play on the hill. They can roll down the hills.
So it's getting ready to be seen a lot.
As I
I
said,
can't
it's been
believe
there
that
12
the
years.
Ford. Yeah.
And it's always packed.
Yeah.
And we knew, it's almost like, again, I work with children.
Yes.
I know what they
Well, you work
want
with
to do.
everyone.
And that
Yes.
was our purpose, to make sure that they had a place of honor. There's 2 walkways. We've got benches that were donated from a local church. They're under 2 of the trees.
Okay.
I've got one lady say, that's my bench. She stops every time she runs and she
Yes.
sits there and and I say, perfect. That's exactly what this is for.
That's good.
And nothing else. That's what it's for. As far as keeping it up, it's so easy to get people to come out and help us keep it up because they know it's theirs.
Yes.
It's called ownership. You know, it's not like it's something you drive by. Oh, wow. And, you know, and so many of them, and you do, you can drive past these things. Unless you were military, why would you think about it? But when you know you're the one that said, thank you.
Yes.
So we put this here to take your thanks,
Okay.
you know, and to make sure that, you know, we are appreciative that you said thank you.
Well, you know, the 4th is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage people that are, whether in Midwest City or not, if you know the city, stop by. And take a look at it and enjoy it and make some connections within the community and reach out.
Yeah, because there's so many organizations. There's so many there's groups that are there right within the neighborhood. And we make sure that they know they can use that for their services, for activities that they may have. You know, we're short of having barbecues and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. I mean, because really it's just a matter of cleaning up and leaving it better than it was. But just to end that with this, the basketball court that's there now is there because of that.
Okay.
Because once they finished it, they couldn't just have those kids playing on that one pole in the parking lot. And poof, there's that big basketball.
It all connected.
It's all connected.
So, Hiawatha, you are so. I mean, you're full of information. I am so glad that we were able to just kind of come and talk and let you kind of tell us some things, and I get to know you a little bit better. Hiawatha. What is that? Is that
Native?
What is it? What's the meaning?
Well, actually, if you were to look up the history of Hiawatha, Algonquin, my great-grandmother is Algonquin Indian.
Okay.
From eastern United States, New York. There were the warring tribes.
Okay.
Hurons, Mohicans, Oneida, all of the different tribes that were in the east. Hiawatha's grandmother, my middle name, Nokomis, when his parents were killed during the wars, she raised Hiawatha. He was a statesman, if you will, Congress. A lot of our Congress and our history of Congress really came from this warring tribes and the things that they did when they came to peace, the long buildings and all of that. But what happened is, if you look at it, he was a spokesperson to bring about the end of a lot of those hostilities with all of these tribes. The Iroquois Nation, you might have heard of. Well, again, that's part of that whole area there, the Mohawks, all of them, the Alleghenies, etc. And they brought them together. Well, Hiawatha was that spokesperson.
Well, you are carrying on the name for sure.
That's it. You don't know what happens or how that happens. It's just things do happen.
And things
one world.
Connect.
I always say one world. And when I was in recruiting, I would always have our kids or students come in and they would say, military world, civilian world. I say, we only have one world. You just happen to be spending time on this side for now. Eventually, you'll be at another place in that side.
In another time. At another time. Yeah. Hiawatha, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on the porch. This has been great.
Hey, it's been wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely. If I can, I'm gonna leave you something here.
All right.
Some of the things that helped me a lot. I love reading. I read mostly nonfiction.
Okay.
There's other than Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek, etc. But there's a lot of things that he's done that really can help us. But that's a reading list that would really.
Let's see here, things that you can learn from Star Trek. Okay, and this is a reading list.
That's a reading list of certain books. And
then what is this?
Oh, that is IDIC. If you understand what that is. Basically, it's a philosophy of equity, connection, people being
Go
together.
ahead and tell
infinite diversity with infinite combinations, meaning all people have value. And by the more of them you have, their differences actually become assets and resources. And that's what they strive for.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you, really.
Thank you for listening and joining me on the porch. Remember to take time to reflect, share memories, and engage with others on your porch. And I'll meet you here next time on The Porch, your podcast for community conversations, brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.